Okay, well, today our speaker is Don Baker. Most of you know Don, of course. He is the president of our board here at the UUCH, and he is going to read us a piece from Reverend Janet Parsons, To Finally Stand Still. So everyone, please, welcome Don.
I have to lower this a little. I think Chris is a little bit taller than I am. A little bit taller than most people I know, actually. Yes, I'll be reading a sermon by the Reverend Janet Parsons from the Gloucester UUCH, that's Gloucester, Massachusetts. And our board, our UU congregation, we subscribe to Soul Matters, a site the UUA has to assist smaller congregations with religious education and worship services. So we get monthly sermons, and we get a year's back that we can go through. And I went through a number of services, and this one struck a chord with me. So this is called To Finally Stand Still. And these words are Janet Parsons. I'll follow with some words of my own at the end. But I've been living in my new house for just over 2 years now. It has been a long time since I moved to a new home, and I've been aware that it takes a long time to truly become home. It takes time to explore, to come to know a place inside and out, to begin to understand it and make it my own. One of my favorite walks takes me up the hill behind my house and into the woods, and there I have discovered a listening rock. This is an enormous boulder, almost a cliff, really, that looks out over a wooded hillside. I remember wandering off the trail once and discovering this giant rock and knowing right away that it was a good place, an important place. It is a place for standing still and paying attention. I detour off the trail and onto the top of this rock every time I walk past and just stand for a few minutes, looking down among the trees below, trying to catch a glimpse of a deer, noticing how the leaves gradually fill in the view in the spring, or now are letting go and carpeting the forest floor. But only recently have I come to think of this as a listening rock. I tend to be very visual, I am observant, and very aware of the growth of plants, of the angle of sunlight, of the color of the sky each day. But because I'm so visually oriented, I tend to not always pay attention to sounds. And so recently, I have given more thought to listening intentionally, to hear everything that I can. What I find I am doing in paying attention this way is listening for silence, hearing sounds. Hearing sounds and listening for silence are two very different things. Can you hear silence? True silence is quite rare, even in the woods. Even a light breeze rustles the remaining leaves. The dog hears things that I cannot, and I see and hear her react. Her hackles raise. There's a low growl. I listen harder. Are there intervals when I cannot hear cars, or the neighbor's leaf blower, the heavy equipment all the way downtown, or the waves crashing on the beach? I note all those sounds, but more and more, I am waiting for the space between them, the silent space. Let's pause now, as we will do a few times in the course of this sermon, to listen for silence. Just relax in your seat and be still. If we're lucky and no car alarms go off or dogs bark, we might be able to hear and feel the silence in this space. All right, we'll now have a little silence. All right. UU Minister Angela Herrera wrote, "Beneath the hustle and bustle, beneath the stream of thoughts that clambers and chatters over the landscape of our interior world, Beneath our habits of momentum and stirring, there is a stillness, deep and peaceful, the place where creation begins. Who lives there? The prophet Elijah listened for God to pass him by as he waited in a cave on Mount Horeb. He listened to the storm that passed, to the earthquake, to the raging fire, but God was not in those. And then there came a silence in which Elijah heard a still small voice, and he covered his face with his cloak and went to the entrance of the cave. The voice he heard asked, "What are you doing here, Elijah?" "Be still," wrote the psalmist, "be still and know that I am God." Beneath the wind and the traffic and the commotion, there is a stillness, deep and peaceful, the place where creation begins. Who lives there? Be still and know. We have many names for who or what lives beneath the chaos and the distraction, the numinous, the holy, the ground of being, ultimate reality, the soul, Buddha, nature, God. Perhaps what we find in the stillness we can name as truth or wholeness or our deepest selves calling out to us. Who or what lives in that still center? What passed by Elijah's cave? Does a name matter? Let us pause once again and wait for the silence. Don't try to meditate, just listen for the stillness. From our earliest lives, we are ordered to pay attention. Teachers and parents insist on having our attention. Look at me when I'm speaking to you. Listen to me. Look out. Look both ways before you cross the street. We grow up expecting others to demand our attention, and we try to give it. The irony is that in doing so, we take the attention away from our own still centers. Think about having to pay attention. We offer it outwardly. We spend it. We are not taught to listen to our deepest selves or to listen for silence in the moments around us. This is a skill we might never have noticed that we are lacking, and something that we have to intentionally work to reclaim as our own. We have to pay ourselves back. Deep listening, entering into silence, can resemble peeling an onion. We encounter sound in layers, and we wait to hear if they might be stripped away, one by one. The sound of voices, then heavy machinery, then the swoosh of cars. Below the traffic sounds, in the pauses, we begin to find a deeper silence, with sounds we have to listen to in order to name. Oh, that's the seething of the ocean. Maybe we're hearing the furnace or the dryer. What's below that? It's hard in this noisy culture to get to a place of total silence. Sometimes fleetingly in the woods, or if we're awake deep in the night, if we are fortunate and patient, sounds can peel away one by one and leave us with what? Our breathing, perhaps, or our faint heartbeat? Sometimes there's a faint hum, harder and harder to identify the deeper we go. Perhaps we arrive at complete silence for a few seconds, or not at all. But over time, as we practice this, we begin to notice the intervals and to open ourselves toward them, to seek out the fleeting moments of silence. What might enter, or what might already be present that we cannot usually find or hear? Perhaps nothing in that moment. The Bible tells us that Elijah was too overwhelmed to recognize the voice of God in that moment of silence. He had to be given further instructions of what to do next. Apparently, according to Bible commentators, Elijah missed his cue. We cannot always understand what we might learn in the silence. We might be unprepared, unwilling to listen. And of course, over the course of our lives, there may be many, many moments of silence that offer no gift other than simply the respite from the commotion of our daily lives. And that is gift enough as we navigate the noise and the distraction. Perhaps we do not need anything else, but what we do know is that without the practice, without the effort to be attentive, to listen for silence, will we not be given the opportunities to sense what might lie beneath the surface, the glimpses of oneness and wholeness that mystics of all traditions assure us can be ours. Sister Joyce Rupp, author and poet, wrote, "In busyness, I often close down. In deliberate or unexpected awareness, I open up. It is in this openness that I see in a deeper or newer way, viewing people, creatures, and nature in a clearer light. As I open and become more aware, something happens inside of me to cause the barriers of my inattentiveness, judgments, or busyness to move aside and for bonding to occur. It is then that I recognize my oneness with the dancing that is inherent in the all of creation. When I take a deep breath and pull in the reins of my hurry, I begin to find the numinous everywhere. In aware moments such as this, I see more clearly, lean into the mystery of life more deeply, and honor the oneness of life more truly. Let's give ourselves one more opportunity to deepen into silence, to hear silence." My friends, when we allow ourselves to be still, to wait, to listen, silence comes to us in brief intervals. Sometimes these are so brief they might slip past us completely unnoticed. But as we grow in awareness, we might begin to notice ourselves opening to that which is both within us and beyond us. These moments are invitations, as we heard in a reading earlier, to step outside of time altogether. In these moments of silence, we are given an opportunity to descend deeper within ourselves, to connect with our most elemental selves, to turn toward that which connects all of life in that web of loving energy that some have named God. The name does not matter. What is important in our lives is to understand deep listening as a spiritual practice, to cultivate these opportunities and to recognize them for what they are, gifts of insight and connection. Angela Herrera wrote this: "The holy waits in your world too. Maybe today it will find you in a listening posture and will whisper to you. May you come to know the great gift of silence, and may you hear in the silence the whispers of your deepest selves." And that's the end of her talk. When I reviewed the available sermons on the UU Soul Matters website, I was drawn to this one, as my wife Angie and I often seek quiet places to reflect and meditate. Wherever we live, we find quiet spots in nature. We found a great place by a quiet stream in the North Carolina Arboretum in Asheville. And then we moved to Colorado, and we found the most peaceful place I've ever encountered at a scenic high-altitude lake in the Button Rock Preserve near Lyons, Colorado, a place where we sat and we heard nothing. We heard not a wind or a bird or a plane. It was an amazingly scenic place, and we have many fond memories of it. And we also found a place, Heil Ranch, nearby where we lived, nature preserve, and there was a walking trail, and we found off a walking trail a giant boulder, which was a listening rock for us, and we would go there and sit, and we would read and reflect and meditate. It was a wonderful place to have during the pandemic, where we could be away from people and harmonize with nature. Now, our favorite spots so far in the Abington area for quiet spots for reflection and meditation, one of our favorite spots was along the Creeper Trail near Straight Branch by the creek. But unfortunately, we can't get there now because the trail is closed, the bridges are out, and the roads are closed. But hopefully one day it will reopen and we can get back there. And another place, which is a nice place, but further away, there's actually a trail called Listening Rock Trail at Grayson Highlands. I don't know if any of you have ever been there, but I would recommend it. It's an easy trail, just about a mile, and you end up at a big, huge boulder that overlooks the valley. Another wonderful place. We look forward to being there back again in the spring. And I hope you're all able to find your own quiet spot for reflection and peace. Thank you for listening.